Picture a pre-trip inspection on an ordinary morning. A driver goes through the routine checklist. Nothing looks unusual, but the supervisor standing nearby senses something is off. They can't point to anything concrete. It is just a feeling. We usually equate impairment with someone stumbling or slurring their words after drinking or using drugs. But in safety-sensitive work, impairment includes any change in a worker's ability to think clearly, react quickly, make sound decisions, or operate machinery safely. Every task you perform on the job, driving, inspecting, repairing, or dispatching, relies entirely on your brain functioning at peak capacity. The central nervous system acts as the body's control center. It dictates every movement, assessment, and reaction required to do the work. This timeline maps a 0.25-second visual reaction window against the physical distance traveled at highway speeds. Nerve signals travel through the human body at speeds approaching 270 miles per hour, giving humans that average visual reaction time of a quarter of a second. When something interferes with that processing speed, even slightly, the physical risk compounds immediately. A delayed reaction turns a close call into a collision. This diagram highlights the exact structures handling these critical jobs. The cerebellum coordinates movement, the thalamus regulates alertness, and the prefrontal cortex governs judgment and impulse control. Because workplace safety hinges on these distinct biological pathways operating in milliseconds, any disruption here creates a massive operational liability. Cognitive impairment is often the first sign of disruption, and it is notoriously difficult to notice in yourself. It shows up as slower processing speeds, poor focus, and a generalized mental fog. This diagram illustrates a divided attention test, showing multiple sensory inputs converging on a single focal point. Researchers use this to track how well someone can monitor multiple inputs at once, a core requirement for operating a commercial vehicle. These tests show measurable cognitive decline at the absolute lowest dose levels of tested substances. Behavioral impairment represents a shift in how someone acts. A worker might become highly irritable, unusually impulsive, or operate with unjustified overconfidence. These shifts quietly elevate the baseline level of risk. A worker feeling overconfident might skip a mandatory safety check or rush a repair, creating dangerous conditions well before any physical accident takes place. Emotional impairment is frequently overlooked. It alters how a person processes stress, resulting in reactions that are either severely amplified or entirely numb. An emotionally unstable worker will struggle to communicate with their team or resolve unexpected conflicts. They lose the ability to stay calm when the situation demands it. Physical impairment extends far beyond a worker stumbling on a shop floor. It often appears as a decay in fine motor skills, a misjudgment of spatial distances, or general unsteadiness. A technician might simply feel stiff, shaky, or overly tired. But those minor symptoms turn routine mechanical tasks, like tightening a valve or securing a load, into dangerous actions. These four categories act as a multi-system failure within the human body. They degrade the biological safety net long before a crash or a workplace injury reveals that something is wrong. You can experience all of these severe biological degradations without being drunk, without being high, and without having used any illicit substance at all. Variables like heavy fatigue, the effects of a hangover, or acute unmanaged stress compromise the brain's processing speed. The sheer absence of a substance can be just as debilitating. Workers withdrawing from opioids or stimulants experience profound physical anxiety and emotional instability, heavily impairing their capacity to work safely. This diagram shows the complete overlap of outward symptoms between chemical intoxication and severe medical conditions. Untreated epilepsy or a sudden drop in blood sugar can produce slurred speech, confusion, and unsteadiness that exactly mimic alcohol impairment. In cases of diabetic ketoacidosis, a complication of high blood sugar, the body produces a fruity, alcohol-like smell on the breath. This specific biological pathway has even caused breathalyzers to register falsely elevated readings. Similarly, an over-the-counter or prescribed medication being legal does not mean it is automatically safe for duty. Common sleep aids, anti-anxiety prescriptions, muscle relaxers, and standard allergy pills routinely degrade alertness, slow reaction times, and impair judgment. Because the visible symptoms of impairment can stem from heroin, severe diabetes, or an allergy pill, assuming you know the cause is a dangerous practice. What matters is the immediate threat to the operation. The Department of Transportation engineers its regulations around universal protection against operational failure. These rules exist to insulate the public and the workforce from risk, rather than simply punishing specific substance abuse. For alcohol, testing relies on a rigid numerical threshold, but for drugs and other forms of complex impairment, the system relies on reasonable suspicion, requiring trained peer observation to identify specific, real-world signs of degradation. Consider a driver who drank heavily the night before. By morning, they might feel completely rested and sober, but their biological reflexes lag significantly behind their conscious perception of how they feel. Or a maintenance technician who took a legal, prescribed sleep aid to manage insomnia. They followed the directions perfectly, yet they report to work with measurable next-day cognitive impairment. Then there is the dispatcher managing a high-pressure shift on 5 hours of sleep for 3 consecutive nights. There is no chemical substance involved, yet their capacity to focus is severely compromised. These 3 scenarios share a critical danger. Not one of these individuals would self-identify as impaired. Relying on self-reporting is a gamble. Under DOT rules, the cause of the degradation is secondary. The only standard that matters is the worker's overall impact on collective safety. Effectively maintaining this protective network requires looking past the stereotype of the drunk worker and recognizing the biological reality of how human beings operate under pressure.